And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters with Jason Tramm, and thank you so much for joining us for our unique podcast community where we explore the triumphs and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished artists. And thank you so much for helping us grow. We hit 1,858 subscribers, and we grow every day thanks to people like you who watch our content and smash that bell icon and they subscribe to us on YouTube for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. Like and share our videos. It helps us grow. And remember, you can chat and questions with our guests and join the conversation. We love that. So feel free to start those chats coming. To see our over 270 past episodes, check out our website at www.jasontramm.net. Again, that's www.jasontramm.net. We have a great guest tonight. We have Brian Streen, the lead guitarist and dynamic singer for Our Future Leaders, a rock band that is putting out some great music. They're based in Orlando with intricate guitars, heart-pounding rhythms, and emotionally charged vocals. They break free from the status quo. And according to, I love this quote here, I'll find it. Their debut album was hailed by indie music reviews as an atom bomb of a debut, and I agree with that. I love their music. You get a review like that, you got to bring it up. So with the success of that, they put out another album. They've got also a single that just came out recently, Inadequate, which is on, you can see on all the streaming platforms, and they've become one of the hottest live acts in Central Florida. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I will say that minor correction. I'm not the lead guitarist. I'm not that good of a guitar player. That would go to my buddy Danny Foote. But I'm more of a rhythm guy myself. But
gotcha. Now you're the songwriter as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
No, I have a funny story about that. When I was like, I want to say like 8 years old, something like that, my grandpa had offered to give me my grandmother's guitar. It's like an old acoustic, whatever. She said, I got this old guitar if you ever want. I go, I don't think I ever want to do that. And then like, I feel like it was like a couple years later, I was like, hey, you still got that guitar?
How old were you?
I want to say like 13, something like that. 13, 14 is when I started. I feel like that feels about right.
Jump into rock and roll.
Yeah.
How'd you start in the music field? Were you singing first? Did the guitar start your singing? Tell us how that went.
I think I started singing first. I think I started singing a little bit, and I was like, I feel like that sounds pretty good. And then I started singing in front of some other people that and that kind of confirmed it with me, and like maybe this is something I could do at least as a hobby. And then I wanted to learn guitar because I saw a friend at camp playing guitar in front of a bunch of girls, and I thought, I was like, I want to do that.
That's the way, right?
So I picked it up, and I started learning. I picked it up pretty quickly too, and I just kind of learned most things by ear. And it came after somebody showed me like how the basics work. I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. And it just it came very natural to me. And I wanted to learn and learn every song I ever listened to. And I just practice all the time.
It is an obsession. I'm a musician. I'm a conductor actually. And I just love rock and roll. And I just I devote half my podcast to classical and half to contemporary. And I'm a big rock fan. So
I noticed that. I thought that was pretty interesting. I was in the high school orchestra, and I started in middle school with bass clarinet, and I played it all through high school and through the marching band. I played, so I went to, I did a bunch of concerts and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting that you do, it seems like your main platform is for orchestral things like that, but you also have like rock musicians on and pop, and I saw that. I thought that was pretty neat.
My son's a drummer. My other son's a guitar player. So we bond over the rock and roll. And
nice.
my older brothers were huge rock fanatics. So I was singing in rock bands, and then I went to college for classical music, but I've retained my love of the rock.
I love it. I mean, some of the best musicians have that under their belt, like bands, like Queen and Muse and bands like that. I love the blend of rock and orchestras. Ultimately that's kind of where I'd like to get, as a musician, is to be able to create something like that. That's my goal anyway, eventually.
Well, you see a lot of groups start to incorporate like orchestral instruments into some of their recordings. I think that's a
Yeah,
cool like
I
synthesis when you
love
make
it.
it work organically.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. I haven't, I've dipped my toe into it a little bit. I haven't gotten quite to the grand, finale yet, but well, I'm sure I'll get there
It
at
seems
some
like
point.
cello is the gateway drug for that type of a collaboration.
You're probably right about that. Yeah, it's kind of like the easy way to get that sound, with something very subtle,
I always
and
joke
it's just
around
one
that
instrument.
some of my friends have played with really big rock bands and they wind up playing half notes on a tour. It's really funny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've seen like Jimmy Page did a lot of that stuff with using the violin bow just on his guitar and stuff like that was such a really cool idea.
Great effect. So, when did you write your first song?
Probably when I was like 13, 14, something like that. It's not good. But
You got to
but
crawl before you can
yeah,
walk.
exactly. It's basically just trying to mimic, whatever songs I ever heard just to see. Um, but yeah, that feels about right. I started, just kind of playing, the same kind of chords that I heard and put something together, stuff that I thought was cool, at the time, of course, but, and yeah, that's more of like a stepping stone. I've just been kind of writing ever since. Um,
So, have you recorded any of your earliest stuff? What's the earliest songs you've actually put it down?
like professionally, like as like a release kind of thing. Yeah, I did. So as kind of like it was almost like a warm up to the EP with Our Future Leaders. I did an acoustic solo album just to see if I could do it, you know. And I think it's like 5 songs or whatever, and I put that up. Um, I think I did it through like CD Baby or something like that, and then like some other like free whatever thing, that I did most of it myself, and then I had it mastered by some buddies of mine that I knew that were doing that kind of stuff. And the process was pretty good. Like it wasn't um, it's not as sonically like pristine as what I would do something like now. Obviously, with it being my first go, is more of
I
kind of
always
an
say it takes a
amateurish
long
kind of
time
thing.
to get comfortable in the studio to really master, work with an
Yeah,
engineer to build things to get your, to figure out all the twists and turns that go with that.
yeah. It's the process is way. I mean, it was basically I just did everything at home, kind of just kind of learning from what I went to school for this kind of stuff, so I knew kind of my way around, and what I could kind of get away with. If I were doing it again today, obviously I'd do it very differently. Like now we get our stuff, like our newest single "Inadequate" was mixed by the same guy who did Paramore and Dashboard Confessional and stuff like that. It's just let's professionals do that kind of stuff.
Well, it's
Um,
fascinating what indie artists are doing because you have some huge indie artists producing music in their house.
Exactly. Like it's way different now than when I did that. That was, yeah, I think I did that on like a 002 control surface in Pro Tools. I was, really old, and I just kind of had what I had. But now the technology is so advanced. I don't even need, I have a couple amps and I don't even use them. I got to sell them because they just sit there. I can do everything. Everything can be modeled now. And it's really, really interesting. Like I could, there's a Kemper amp that can model everything, model every guitar sound, and you just export it, and then I could have that. Like it's wild. I love it. And
It's a new world, it really
it
is.
couldn't come at a better time either. With COVID and everything. It's interesting, like because everybody's putting out music now. So
So,
it's
what's it like working with a great producer, someone who really has their foot in the field, and what does that bring to your music?
it's well, for one, it's really helpful to have, like I think I think that I have, a producer's ear, and I can hear, I know what I want the big picture to sound like, but it's really nice to have somebody who you trust that also it's way, more knowledgeable about the stuff than you are, and give you those little notes that you might not really be able to give yourself, um objectively, while you're like playing it. You hear certain things and they go, no, you know what, why don't we try it this way? Stuff like that is really helpful, and it we end up making something better than what we went in to start with. So that's huge.
It is huge.
I don't, whatever the outcome is, if it's better, then yeah, let's do that.
The multiple brains. And how long does it take to get comfortable with a producer?
Probably a little while. So like, it depends, I guess, certain people, you kind of just vibe right away, like there was, with, a couple of songs that we tracked in the studio. I don't think that we mixed them. You know what we did? So the song we did, Sleep Silent, we did with, a buddy, at a studio here, called Alpaca Studios. He's moved to, like, I think Tennessee now. But me and him, hit it off really, really well. And so I've always gone back there, and we just have that kind of rapport. Just kind of, it flowed. He had the same stuff that I was into, and we had very similar personalities, and that makes it really comfortable. And, we've been there a few times. So yeah, for that kind of just worked out. That, I think that's really, really important, to be comfortable with somebody. Because I think if you're not, it ends up coming across, like, depending on how they are, it can come across as, where you might get defensive for certain notes and things like that. And I didn't feel like that, with these guys.
Yeah, it's great to have that kind of relationship and to build that rapport. And that does take time. It's like any other musical collaboration, but you got to trust each other, and each brings
Yeah.
something different to the table.
Yeah. I mean, as everybody just wants to make, a good song. They want the final product, because, for one, it makes us look good, but also, like, the love of the art, is also, paramount.
What's it like taking a piece that you write in your home or your living room, and you bring it in? And I'm always amazed by how things change when you bring it to the studio and the production team gets involved and the band gets
Yeah.
involved. What's it like to go from, like, conception to hearing it on Spotify, let's say?
That's pretty wild. It's, I guess, after you do it, well, with Spotify being as big as it is now, everybody's releasing music like every day. It's, I guess it's kind of minimized now, but it's still really cool whenever I see it up there, or, we get played on the local radio, something like that. That's huge. You could have imagined that 10 years ago. It's wild.
I just find it incredible that that indie artists can get a global audience. You can put your music out there, and then people can hear
Yeah.
it anywhere in the world. What's it like when it comes back to you, like from somewhere you'd never expect?
Oh man, that's what keeps me going. It's hard to, sometimes it's difficult to feel like anything you do matters, or like this kind of just goes out into the void, and, the worry that nobody will hear it. Like, so my thought process on that now is that I really just kind of make it for me, and if other people enjoy it, that's more of a bonus. But, like, we've had a huge response in Brazil, which was, I thought that's wild, like, that people from Brazil would really take to their music. There's a guy from Australia who's a huge fan. I've known him for years, and he's an adult now, but he found my music when he was like 13 or a teenager or something like that. And now he's an adult, and he messages me every so often, that, when we release a new song or whatever, and stuff like that. That's really keeps me going, especially when, I might not be feeling great about, I get depressed, and, just like anybody else, that kind of stuff really is like, man, wow, okay, that I'm ready to go again. That's what keeps me moving.
Yeah, we all need that as artists, because it's such a, the field is one it can constantly bring you down. You have to remind yourself, like, find that love in the music, because ultimately that's where it comes from, right? All the
Right.
performing and comes from that love of the art.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like it's easy to forget that, when you're in the process, and you're like, this is the one. It's weird it's a silly way to think of it like that. But it's easy to get swept up in that kind of thought process. And really, I always try to remind myself it's really just like, I'm just trying to make music that I like. And if other people enjoy it too, cool. That's even better, but that's not really the point. It's more of a kind of a side effect, I think. So
So
it's
tell me
always
about
good.
the band, Our Future Leaders. When did you start, and where did the name come from?
um, I think so. We went from, I guess, the same parts of the band. It was called Breach of Peace when I first moved down to Orlando, from Jacksonville, Florida, and I wanted to start a band. I was going to school at Full Sail University, and uh, there was a couple buddies that I grew up with that moved down here as well, and they were down. They wanted to start a band with me, and over the years we had some guys come and go, and we ended up changing the name to Our Future Leaders. We chose that name. I think there was like some other band in like Ocala or some weird place that had like Breach of Peace or whatever, and so we wanted to change it so that because it was so close.
It's hard to find an original name these days, right? It's really important.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, probably even harder now, but so I basically the idea was that I was writing. I write some music that's somewhat political, and I not always, but sometimes stuff that makes me angry, and I wanted. I was basically it's what is the music or who's going to be listening to this? And I was like, our future leaders would be listening to this kind of music. This is the music I want our future leaders to listen to. And I thought that was kind of a cool kind of catch-all
interesting
name for it. And the guys liked it. And I was like, all right, cool. That's what we're doing.
Seems like right now our current leaders are in their 80s.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Maybe if we can get some fresh blood in there, that'd be dope.
I think we need that on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always fascinated by the way music and society intertwine and how music is kind of captured like an amber in society, right? It's like Jurassic Park capturing the amber of the dinosaur DNA, and we get that in our music. It kind of traps it in there and locks it in for us.
Yeah, that's true. And some stuff is timeless. Some like it's funny and sad. Certain issues that keep coming around all the time. And that stuff just kind of ends up being, stuff that Rage Against the Machine was talking about that's happening now. It's been happening ever since, it's crazy how that stuff kind of ends up like that. I have a song I wrote called American Dream that is just like that. And I retweet it every now and then. I see something, I'm like, man, it's wild how relevant this still is,
Some things just never change, and it's important that we, as musicians, we document that and put that in our music. I think that's great that you do that.
It's a good way to make angry music, that's for sure. Which is I do enjoy.
Rock and roll has always been about rebellion and about putting rage out there. I just saw Tool with my son, who was a drummer, and let me tell you that was wild.
Wow. I haven't got a chance to see them yet, but that it would be that's all on my list for sure.
My classical colleagues were surprised to see me with my son hanging out at the Tool concert. That was unique.
Yeah, that's a totally other end of the spectrum.
But you know what? When you do music right, there's no different types of music. There's excitement and energy. The same excitement and energy that a rock show demands is what makes classical music great too when it's done right.
Absolutely, yeah. Music that is anything that is dynamic. It hits really well. I think that's kind of the key to music, is making something that's dynamic, whether no matter what genre it kind of ends up in. But that's a good point. Like orchestral music it's all over the place, and it's wild. There's still pieces of music that like it was really moving. Like, man, this thing's crazy. Who thought of this?
Some usually very smart people, and
way smarter than me.
Like rock and roll, it's like, only the best survives on. A lot of the stuff that wasn't great just kind of disappears in the history of time, just like rock and roll, right? Like you don't remember some of those bands just kind of disappear, but the great ones kind of stick up there. Who are some of your idols growing up?
My first favorite band was Rush when I was like 8 years old.
I saw them 3 times, including their last tour.
You're lucky. I never got a chance. I could never afford. They were always really expensive tickets. I always wanted to go, but I could never afford it. And of course, now that time has passed, unfortunately. But my dad had it was a cassette of moving pictures. No, I'm sorry, A Farewell to Kings, of Rush, and I had like a little stupid little cassette player thing, but it was like a little tiny radio. It wasn't like a personal Walkman, whatever. It was just a little radio that played out loud, and I'd play it at a low volume on the bus, listening to Rush at 8 years old, which I always think is kind of cool now.
Great place to start. Those guys, boy oh boy, they were so talented.
They're amazing. I mean, they're masters of their instruments. And
all three.
And
I was devastated when Neil Peart died, just devastated. And him and Van Halen dying in the same year was just absolutely devastating.
Oof. Yeah, we're losing a lot more of those kind of guys lately, which is unfortunate.
Well, we're making room for you guys like yourself to step up there and fill the void.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and get better and be as good
Yeah,
as them.
keep putting it out there. I think your music's really good. I get
Thank you.
fed like 5,000 people a cycle from Reverb Nation, and I go through them with my kids. And if the three of us agree on an artist, they're usually pretty freaking good.
Cool.
And we loved your music and thought this guy has something
Thank
to
you.
say. So I always look for artists that are expressing something, that have like emotion. And I really think your songs just kind of punch at you, and they really have a lot of power, and there's something there really special.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot. That's I try to put the expression and the emotion that I'm feeling at the time as best that I can. Sometimes when I listen back, like, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then sometimes I was like, man, I kind of wish I would have done this differently, or, whatever. But it's out there, and that means a lot. It really does.
We got some love from the audience. Bill says, "Keep living your dreams."
That's Bill Ritchie. That is, say hello to my guitar teacher.
Oh,
Bill Ritchie is an amazing guitar player,
shout
singer,
out to Bill
songwriter.
Ritchie.
Bill Ritchie is amazing. He lives out in Jacksonville. After about, I think, a year or so of playing guitar, my parents saw that I was getting pretty decent at it, and I put in the work, and they thought I should get maybe an instructor to fine tune things. And I had like initially went to it was like a jazz guy, and he was like showing me jazz stuff because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And eventually I ended up with Bill Ritchie one day, and he asked me, what do you want to learn? And I was like, I don't know. No one's ever really asked me that before. I said, I want to, well, how about we learn this? It was like, song that I was listening to. It was probably like Collective Soul or something. And we just learned the songs, and I picked up a bunch of stuff from there, and I kind of snowballed, I guess, from there.
They kind of adapt. Every teacher that comes your way and makes an impact kind of adds something to what you are and kind of expands your possibilities. So tell us about the music of Our Future Leaders. How would you describe the music? What's it like seeing a live show?
For like seeing our show?
Sure.
I mean, so we it's been a while since we played a show. It's been a lockdown for a long time. When we were playing live, we wanted to leave everything on the stage, just nothing but energy. But we also, like I was talking about before about dynamics, is the ups and downs were just as important. To be able to come out. It's not, because if it's just all this all the time, you really can't go anywhere from there. So I thought it was cool to, in a show, to have, come out strong, put some stuff in there, like, a song like Inadequate in between there. That's maybe a little soft poppy. And then we have a metal song, we go right into something really heavy. And we just, try to get rid of all of our energy all at once, all the stress from the week. We left it on the stage. And that was, I don't think we've really ever had many bad nights playing, even if there was, only a handful of people there. We were trying to kick teeth in, was the goal.
You take the audience on a journey, and that's the challenge. You got to, if you're only loud, right? It's like there's only plateaus. It would lose my interest. But I love the bands that can kind of take you on that journey and together and go all over in different, great power ballads or kind of interesting kind of approaches to the music.
That's really what I always wanted to do in a rock band. I didn't just want to make, heavy music. I like all different kinds of stuff. I like really heavy bands, and I like, pop and all kinds of stuff, and that's the stuff that I would like to do as a rock band. And that's what I set out to do. So that's basically how I always pictured Our Future Leaders, was being a diverse rock band. Like bands like the Smashing Pumpkins is a really good example. Like, they go all over the place. Like, they have really heavy songs, but they've got orchestral ballads, and they've got soft pop stuff and acoustic stuff. I love that. That's so cool. And not a lot of bands do that.
And it's great that you're a young person. You're always expanding your sphere of influence. You look at some of the bands that have been around for a while. You have to grow as an artist. You can't stay the same, right? It's things are always shifting and growing.
Yeah, I always think that's always kind of a fine line that bands have to walk. Especially big bands. It's either you do something different and people say, oh, it doesn't sound like the other thing that we expected, or you stay the same. They go, but this sounds exactly like before. So it's funny kind of towing that line. But I think it's more important to do something different, have something that's, I guess, familiar, but if you're not progressing to something different, then what's the point, is basically how I see it. And I always welcome any time a band changes, for better or for worse. That's always kind of depends on your ear, I guess, and your taste. But I always appreciate it when bands kind of go out and try something new.
It's a challenge for a band. You look at a band like Rush, and they kept reinventing themselves. They had the
Yeah.
80s, synth sounds and kind of exploring pop music and world music,
Right.
and then their 90s was a little more grunge influenced. And I was kind of amazed by that. They lost some people along the way, but they have to change as artists so they get bored with the music themselves.
Absolutely. I think for them, I think overall they've been able to do that line really well, because they've always kind of kept that familiar sound, versus going, because they've always been like crazy. Like they've got songs that are like just full on instrumentals for 14 minutes or whatever. The balls to do that is, I mean, that's amazing. But then they have stuff like Limelight and Tom Sawyer, and then they do stuff like what is it, like the Temple of Syrinx or whatever, I can't remember exactly what it's called. They go all over the place, and I love that.
A fun show. And they usually every band, like pretty much every band I see, they could like go on down the Spotify list, their encore is gonna be their top 2 or 3 hits, right?
Yeah,
They
right.
opened the second half with Tom Sawyer. People went bonkers.
You got it. I mean, that's the fan favorite, of course.
Whoa! And it didn't matter because every song, everyone knew every word. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of fun to see them. I saw them when I was in high school. I saw them a little after, and I saw them their last tour. It was like kind of a farewell.
So jealous.
His voice was a shred of itself.
Really?
Couldn't sing any of the high notes anymore. No.
Well, I mean, that's still probably higher than anything most people can get anyway. His range is insane.
It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. He could dial it back and nobody would even really care.
He would take things down the octave. He'd
Yeah.
fake it by just it was interesting, but who cares?
I mean, he's how old now? I can't imagine.
Been around
doing that.
forever.
Yeah.
So have you always have you taken singing lessons? I know you took guitar lessons. Was singing also?
I think I feel like I took a couple of singing lessons. I remember singing in like a church choir for a small little bit. I was going to like the teenager Bible stuff after school and stuff. And I did some of that. That's kind of where I first started singing in front of people. And then, I took a couple lessons.
Good for singing in tune and listening to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like looking up like videos and things and like techniques and stuff on how to sing and how to breathe properly and stuff like that. That's kind of I think that's more of like a lifetime thing. You kind of spend learning and kind of dialing those things in. Cause as your voice changes over time, there's like little things, it's an ongoing process. I think really.
I have this conversation with some really great opera singers, and every 7 years it's like giving you a new instrument, pretty much, because the voice is always shifting and changing, like you're saying.
Yeah,
it's always shifting and changing, and you have to learn how to negotiate that. And
right.
When you take a band like we're talking about Rush, he was doing the extremes of what the voice could do. So of course, as he got older, he can't do those extremes anymore.
Yeah. There was this. Over the years, I always heard about people talking about singing in your range, and I feel like I had a pretty good range starting out, and now I guess too. But there's your zone that you live in really comfortably, and you can probably hit stuff outside of that most of the time, some of the time, but sometimes you can't. And I've hit those very often. And I understand really, I was like, this is your zone. And I get that now. That's something I didn't know when I was younger.
I'm going to go music nerd. We call that tessitura in classical music. This is a learning moment.
Tessitura.
Yep, and
Cool.
that's your comfortable average range.
Right.
And like a smart composer knows you don't live there. You go up there once in a while, you go back down.
Right, exactly. I did a lot of that when I was younger, and it stresses your voice a lot. And knowing that now, it's really important to know what people are talking about, especially when you're in the vocal booth, you're spending money to record. So I'm more aware of that now, and I think that kind of that's a strength, knowing that where you can do those kind of high things or low things, whatever.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's always a learning experience, right? Always going through these things, and the stage is a great teacher. I always say.
Yeah, the stage is actually where I've come up with some really cool stuff, because it's the energy is different, right? And there's that live connection that you make with people that's really special, and those moments can create special things that I never did rehearsal, or I've never did when we were recording it. It was a spur of the moment thing, and it just happened. I was like, wow, that sounded really cool. I don't know why I did it; it just felt right at the time, and now we end up using that, for the recording or whatever. That stuff is awesome.
So, how much of the when you come to the band with material, how much does it change when you take it from there to when you add the other members?
That's tough to say. Like, kind of depends, I guess. I think a lot of the stuff is, we keep most of it, I guess. Maybe over 50% for sure. Most of the time it depends, like no song is the same, and I never have the same piece of it at the per song. I might just have, like, hey, this is a cool riff I was working on, what do you think? Or I wrote what I think is the entire thing, and I just kind of go there, and we just need to add pieces to it or whatever. There's really no consistent thing with that, where I bring something and they're like, oh, you know what, that I don't like that, let's do it this way. You never know.
That's what makes music interesting, right? You never know where the muse hits. So,
Yeah.
what's it like when we're all performers, right? And we were performing and busy and getting ready for lots of live concerts, and all of a sudden everything comes crashing down in 2020. COVID hits. How would that affect you directly?
Well, it's really different. Trying to adapt to that, because when I was really performing all the time, it's one of those things that I really enjoy doing. It it's like it becomes like a need. Like, I mean, I got to get on stage soon. I gotta go play.
It is a
And
drug. It is a drug.
yeah, it's a weird kind of high, and it's a good stress reliever for one. But yeah, it's different. It's a different. You have to adapt to it. But after a while, so initially it was, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't touch my guitar for months. Um, you know, and after a while, uh, I just started kind of writing stuff and trying to adapt, and I ended up writing Inadequate out of that depression, because there's a lot,
Interesting.
not being able to go see people, and just being at home all the time, and not being able to really do anything. It's I didn't really have an idea of what to do with myself, I guess. So I ended up writing that, and TikTok came along, and I didn't really know what to do with that at the time. And then eventually I kind of just started kind of playing with it, and I was throwing stuff out there. I really knew what I was doing. And then I started kind of learning as I was going, and I've been started making videos. And that's become a release for me. Now I understand what works for me, and how I can express myself, and get rid of that, what's inside of me at the time. I'm like, I want to throw this out there. Stuff that makes me laugh, and that's kind of been my new thing, is that, TikTok, especially TikTok and Instagram, making videos to replace that. And I wish I had started doing it sooner, when we were really in the hard lockdown. I feel like we're getting close to where we can come out of it now. Hopefully, we'll see. But that has really been helpful, because the reach is so much more than you can get from any show, unless you're already huge. The reach, like going out, like I can reach, hundreds, thousands of people from just making short little videos versus having to drive somewhere for, however knows long, and then maybe play to a handful of people, maybe it's packed, who knows, it's a mixed bag, you never know. And I don't have to lose any money from it either.
Turn on your computer
So
or your phone, and bam, right there.
yeah,
it is.
it's really interesting adapting to that change. But I think that I've gotten comfortable with it now. It would be cool, I guess, once I don't even know if I'm comfortable for the stage anymore. It's been so long. I'll probably start getting nervous again doing it. But
When was your last live show?
it's a good question. I feel like it was maybe, it was years ago. I don't even know what, I don't even know what it was, to be honest. I couldn't tell you, but it was several years ago. So it's been different, but I'm finally adapting to it in a positive way, I think. And TikTok won't always be there like that. It's one of those, we're in one of those cycles that where, you can really reach people on these platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff. Whereas you really couldn't before. Every now and then something like that comes along where you can really take advantage of it and reach people. But you really have to jump on it. So I'm glad I've finally found it now.
I'm amazed by some of the creativity of the creative artists I work with. And I've seen opera singers at the Met who, of course, they were canceled too. There was no performances, so they were doing voice lessons and quick jokes on TikTok and gag reels, and they're getting millions of views on that stuff. It's the wildest thing, but it gave people a chance to get out there and make an audience.
Yeah, it's a different kind of approach, and that's why I said it took me a while to really figure out how I could make that work for me. And once I did, it really felt quite satisfying. It replaced that need to be on stage in more of a personal way, which I think is kind of cool. Like, you can really connect with an art, and it's crazy. There's so many talented people on TikTok. It's disgusting. Like, it's very humbling, but also it's a little upsetting. It's like, man, these guys are really good. I got to get there. It creates kind of a place for me. Like, this is where I need to get here. And, it's just another step that I can make for myself, personal journey where, like, man, okay, this is where I need to be. I need to do this. This wasn't before.
Haven't gotten to the TikTok yet, but that's this coming up this month. I'm going to put on there.
I highly recommend it. It's before, I guess, when it started out, it was dances and kind of silly kid things and stuff like that. But now it's really kind of evolved, and there's quite a music community on there. And I've been reaching out to other musicians and stuff who are trying to do the same thing, trying to get their music out there. And some people are blowing up. It's crazy, and they're really, really, like, there's so much talent on there. It's wild.
It's just a new way. I say there's never been such a way to get your indie music out there, but it's also never been so much music going out there. It's like white noise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's another side of it, right? It's great that, there's so much available, but then, right, exactly. How do you wade through it all? There's so much of it. And that's it. I still feel like that's it's better than what we had before, where there was, all this gatekeeping, record labels and stuff. They don't even really matter anymore. People can just do whatever they want and by themselves. There's so much knowledge and everything's accessible. All the technology is so advanced now. You can just do everything on your phone, and it looks amazing.
Look what we're doing here. You're in Florida. I'm in New York City. We're having this conversation back and forth, and pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it's even though there are, like you said, there's some bad sides to it, of course, but like, I think overall it's a good thing.
I think so too. So I'd love to hear you sing a song. What do you have today?
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully my guitar is still in tune. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Okay. It still sound okay over there?
Sounds great in New York.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to do our new song, Inadequate. I'm tired all the time. This is not where I wanted to be. I'm sick of feeling sorry for myself. This is me demotivated, and I'm inadequate again. You don't see me as I want you to, and I'm invisible again. You don't see me as I want you to. You can't see me 'cause I can't be myself. I'm inadequate. I'm inadequate. I'm surrounded by these faces I don't recognize. Even worse, they bring the worst out of me. I've never been more deliberate until right now. Excuse me if I see myself out, I burn myself out. Now I'm inadequate again. And you don't see me as I want you to, and I'm invincible again. And you don't see me, you don't see me. You can't see me as I want you to. You can't see me 'cause I can't be myself. You don't see me. You don't see me. I'm tired all the time. This is me demotivated. And I'm inadequate again. And you don't see me as I want you to. And I'm invisible again. And you don't see me, you don't see me. And you don't see me as I want you to. You can't see me 'cause I can't be myself. And I can't see it now, but somehow it'll work out. And you can't see me 'cause I can't stand myself. I'm inadequate. And I'm inadequate. And I'm inadequate.
Thank you. It's a great song. And such now that we know where it's from, coming out of the pandemic, we all can tap into those feelings, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I I would certainly hope so. I feel like especially when I was writing this at the time, and now as I always see posts about people talking about depression. It's kind of like tongue in cheek a lot of times because that's kind of how you have to deal with it, I guess. But that is where a lot of it was coming from too. It seemed like a lot of people are going through a lot of the same stuff for the same reasons, and that for me, it's when I'm not working on music stuff, I'm not progressing towards making music, and that ends up being kind of this cycle, you know. But it's important to know, if you can, figure out where it's coming from, because you can kind of deal with it. And I know that that's my thing. I know that when I start feeling that way, it's because I'm not doing I'm not working on music, I'm not doing any of that stuff. That's the stuff that I love, and it's difficult to start up when you're feeling that way. And so I thought for sure, like this would, like, for one, it was more cathartic for myself, but I thought, as a side thing of it would be, I feel like a lot of people could probably relate to this, this feeling that I'm having, especially in the times that we're in. What better time
The
for
ancient Greeks
something like that?
understood. They understood that getting the emotion out there on the stage, frees it up for everybody else. So that's and I really feel you deeply singing that. I love the way that the verse starts kind of low and kind of thinking, and then it explodes into the chorus. Very, very effective songwriting.
Thank you. Again, that goes to, I really like the ups and downs, that kind of scream to a whisper thing. That's something I always try to strive for. There's certain times where everything like can be explosive all the time, but I think, making that as dynamic as possible is important. But for me, that's my style. I really like that. I really like it. I think it makes it more powerful. When you know where the lows are, and then this comes out really strong. It just sounds right to me. That's the kind of music that I like.
Well, keep it coming. What are you working on
Thank you.
now?
Well, I got a couple songs in the pipe. I've put a couple like little teaser things on TikTok too. Just kind of, it really doesn't matter. Like I put stuff out and kind of just see what people think of it. I guess it kind of gives me an idea of which one I'm kind of leaning more towards. But I'm working on like this kind of like blues rock song that's very fun, and probably the most fun I've ever had writing a song, because it's a little bit different perspective. It's like it's not from my perspective. It's like I like, this would be cool if this were written by like an old blues man. And I just kind of got in that headspace, and I was pacing around writing it. I was having a blast writing it. And it's this really it's a very kind of typical blues rock riff, but with my own little spin on it. And it's got some like fast paced vocals, and it's very, very fun, kind of like driving song. And then this other song that's a little bit more chill, but the like lyrically, I think it's one of the best that I've ever written. It's very visual. A lot of the words kind of jump off, and they paint a picture really well, I think. So I'm really excited about that. And hopefully I'm thinking I'll probably end up turning this into like another EP,
Nice.
which would be cool. Maybe, a couple songs that I've released before, but then some new ones would be really neat. And I see some people in the chat there. That's cool. Thank you, Igor. And
one of my favorite composers is commenting. I love that.
Really? That's
well,
cool.
He died in the 1950s, so someone.
Oh, it's just like his handle or whatever. That's cool. Thank you.
Appreciate the love no matter where it comes from.
Right, absolutely. And from Dead Guy.
I like this. Kayla Eats World. There's a great comment there too, and very powerful. No, it's great to see how your music touches people. And I heard that was the first song I heard of yours. And when I went on YouTube and listened to it, I'm like, man, this guy's got something to say. And I always look for that.
I appreciate that. This song's a little different than, I've done, I guess, a song or two kind of like this, but this song was more poppy than some of the stuff I've been doing. But that's kind of how I liked it. I don't like to release things that are like the same back to back. Certainly, it's like the last song I did, I think was "You're the Void," which is kind of like a Nine Inch Nails kind of song, that I collaborated with a buddy of mine, who goes by 86 Crush is his artist name. And he does amazing electronic stuff. He's like an amazing piano player. He makes these really like crazy, like ambient vibes and these cool beats and stuff like that. And we ended up collaborating on that and making this really cool, heavy electronic track, which is something I never did before. And before that was, kind of like a Chevelle, kind of like heavy rock song. And the next one's probably going to be the blues rock song. So
Nice.
that's what I like to do.
Keep the experiments coming. Where can people go to find out more about you, Brian Spian, and our future leaders?
Well, our website's ourfutureleaders.net. We're on all digital platforms. Very active. We've been on TikTok a lot lately. Instagram is where we tend to live most of the time. But yeah, ourfutureleaders.net. We're on Spotify. Pretty much anywhere that we're anywhere that's doing music, we're going to be on there most likely.
Well, thank you so much for joining on Music Matters tonight. Really appreciate you coming on and singing for us and telling us your story, and wish you continued success.
Thanks. It was a pleasure being here. It was a pleasure to meet you finally.
All the best, and can't wait to get you back on the stage and to see you live.
That's the plan. We'll get there eventually.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us tonight on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. Check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and not yet Twitter, not yet TikTok, but coming soon. Thank you for joining us, and remember, keep music alive.